She was the daughter of a millionaire, surrounded by wealth, privilege, and everything money could buy, yet she lived in silence, not because she wanted to, but because she couldn't speak. Doctors tried, therapists tried, nothing worked. Her father, desperate and ashamed, hid her away from the world. To him, her silence was a flaw, a stain on a perfect family image. Then one day a woman walked into their mansion. She wasn't rich. She wasn't powerful. She was just a nanny, a black woman from the other side of town. At first the family didn't want her there. In their world, skin color still mattered, and hers was enough to spark whispers, judgment, and prejudice. But what no one expected was that this woman carried something more powerful than money, more powerful than hate. She carried a voice that would break through walls of silence, fear, and racism. And when the mute little girl heard it, something impossible happened. What did this nanny say that no doctor, no expert, no father's wealth could ever achieve? Stay with me, because this story isn't just about one child finding her voice. It's about how love speaks louder than prejudice. It was supposed to be just another day. Marcus Johnson, a 27-year-old college graduate, woke up early that morning the way he always did. He brewed his coffee, slipped on his favorite pair of worn-out sneakers, and scrolled through his phone as sunlight crept through the blinds. To anyone watching, it was the picture of normalcy. A young man with a job, a family that loved him, and dreams he was still chasing. Marcus worked long hours at a local warehouse. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. On his days off, he helped his younger sister with her homework and dropped by his mother's house to fix whatever was broken. He wasn't a troublemaker. He wasn't reckless. He was just a man trying to carve out his piece of the American dream. That evening, Marcus clocked out later than usual. The night air was cool, the streets mostly quiet, and he decided to walk the short route home instead of waiting for the bus. He'd walked that same stretch countless times. He knew the cracked sidewalks, the corner store with the flickering neon sign, and the stray dog that sometimes followed at a distance. It was familiar, safe, or at least it always had been. But on this night, something felt different. As Marcus passed under a dim streetlight, a car rolled slowly down the block. Its headlights stayed trained on him longer than necessary. He noticed but brushed it off. People drove slow all the time. Maybe they were looking for an address. Still, the hairs on his arms stood up. He adjusted the strap of his backpack, quickened his pace, and kept his eyes forward. A voice in the back of his mind whispered that he was overthinking. After all, he wasn't doing anything wrong. He was just walking home. But across the street, another shadow moved. A group of men lingered near the entrance of a store that had closed hours earlier. Their voices were low but sharp. Laughter cut through the silence, followed by words Marcus couldn't quite make out. He tried to ignore it, focusing on the rhythm of his steps, the beat of his heart. This was his neighborhood, his street. He belonged here. And yet, for reasons he couldn't explain, it suddenly didn't feel that way anymore. The world around him seemed heavier, quieter, as though the night itself was holding its breath. His pulse quickened. Somewhere deep inside, Marcus knew, without proof, without certainty, that something was about to happen. Something that would test not just his strength, but his very right to exist freely in a place he had always called home. He couldn't have known it then, but this walk, this ordinary walk on an ordinary night, was about to spiral into a moment that would reveal the raw, painful truth about what it means to live while black in America. The mansion stood tall, its marble walls glowing under the morning sun. Inside, silence ruled. Little Emily, the millionaire's daughter, hadn't spoken a single word since birth. Doctors called it a medical mystery. Her father, Richard, threw his wealth into every clinic, every specialist, but the result was always the same: nothing. That's when Maya, the new nanny, entered their lives. A tall black woman with kind eyes and a voice like velvet. She hummed old lullabies when she worked, her songs filling the echoing hallways with warmth, but not everyone welcomed her presence. At dinner, Richard's wealthy guests whispered, "A black woman in this house." As a nanny, their laughter was sharp, cruel, meant to be heard. Richard ignored them. His wife shifted uncomfortably, pretending not to notice. But Maya, she noticed everything. Still, she focused on Emily. Day by day, she read to her, sang to her, and told her stories from her own childhood. Emily's wide eyes followed every word. For the first time in years, the little girl smiled. But soon tension began to build. One afternoon, while Maya pushed Emily on the garden swing, the head housekeeper stormed over. "Mr. Richard may trust you," she hissed, "but don't think you belong here. You're just the help. Don't get too comfortable." Maya said nothing, but Emily's small hands clutched Maya's tightly, as if she understood the sting of those words. Then came the dinner party that changed everything. The mansion glittered with crystal chandeliers, polished silver, and guests dressed in gowns and tuxedos. Richard wanted Emily to make an appearance. For years, he had paraded her like a silent doll, proof of his family's wealth, but also a reminder of their curse. Maya stood in the corner, holding Emily's hand as the guests gathered. One of them, a man with slicked back hair and a smirk, raised his glass. "Tell me, Richard," he sneered, "how's the little mute? Still as silent as the day she was born?" The laughter stung. Richard's jaw tightened. Emily lowered her head, shame flooding her pale cheeks. But then something happened. Maya bent down, whispering softly into Emily's ear. Her voice was low, steady, full of strength. The same lullaby she had sung every night, the same rhythm that had wrapped Emily in comfort. Emily's chest rose. Her lips trembled, and then, "Stop!" The room froze. A single word, small but sharp, cut through the noise. The guests gasped. Richard dropped his glass. His wife clutched the table. And Emily was speaking. But before anyone could celebrate, the slick-haired guest sneered again. "Figures. Took a black woman to get your daughter to talk. Must be some kind of trick." The words landed like poison. Richard's face reddened, caught between pride for his daughter and shame from the insult. The guests murmured, some disgusted, others stunned. Emily clung to Maya, hiding her face in her dress. Maya straightened, her eyes locking with the guests. Calm but unflinching. "No trick," she said firmly. "Just love." The silence that followed was heavier than thunder, but Richard knew what was coming. Rumors, scandals, whispers that a black woman had succeeded where doctors failed. In his world of wealth and status, such truths were dangerous. And as Maya tucked Emily into bed that night, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Someone was coming, and Maya realized this was only the beginning. The night of the gala arrived. The mansion glittered with chandeliers, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. Eleanor, the millionaire's daughter, stood silently in her golden dress, eyes scanning the crowded ballroom. She was mute, her world wrapped in silence, but her heart was heavy with something no one around her understood. Across the room, Rosa, the black nanny who had raised her since birth, carried a tray of drinks. To most, she was invisible, just the help. But to Eleanor, she was the only person who ever truly saw her. And then it happened. A guest, one of her father's powerful business partners, laughed too loudly. He turned, bumped into Rosa, and the crystal glasses shattered across the marble floor. The room froze. Gasps, whispers, every eye locked onto her. The man sneered, his voice cutting through the silence. Clumsy, just like the rest of them. "Why do you keep people like her in this house?" A wave of disgust spread through the crowd. Some nodded, others looked away. Rosa bent down to clean the shards, her hands trembling. But Eleanor saw more than broken glass. She saw Rosa's dignity crushed under a weight of centuries of hatred. And then, something inside Eleanor snapped. Her lips parted, her throat burned. A sound, rough, unsteady, escaped. For the first time in her life, Eleanor spoke. "Stop!" The words sliced through the ballroom louder than the orchestra. The crowd turned, stunned. Her father dropped his champagne glass. Rosa froze, tears brimming. Eleanor's voice grew stronger with every syllable. "Don't you ever speak about her that way. She raised me. She gave me love when this house gave me nothing but silence. She is more family to me than anyone in this room." Her voice cracked, but she didn't care. "You call her less? No, she is the reason I found my voice. The reason I am standing here today." The ballroom erupted, gasps, murmurs, a storm of scandal. Her father's face flushed with rage and shame. Rosa stood motionless, hands covering her mouth as tears streamed down her face. In that moment, the weight of centuries clashed with the courage of a single girl. And everyone knew. The world inside that mansion would never be the same again. He made it home that night, but he wasn't the same. The street he once walked with ease now felt like enemy ground. Every shadow seemed heavier, every glance from a stranger sharper. The incident had ended, yes. The men who mocked him eventually drove away, leaving nothing but silence behind. But the silence wasn't empty. It carried the weight of something deeper. That single moment carved a scar, invisible to everyone else but unforgettable to him. He had done nothing wrong. He wasn't guilty of anything except looking the way he looked, existing in the skin he was born in, and yet he was made to feel like he didn't belong. This is the cruel truth of racism. It doesn't always leave bruises on the body, but it leaves wounds on the soul. It strips away dignity, safety, and peace of mind. And it doesn't just end with one person. It spreads into families, into communities, into generations. But here's what matters. Stories like his must not be ignored. Because his story is not just his own. It echoes the lives of countless others who have faced the same humiliation, the same fear, the same question of why me. The impact of that night pushed him to speak out, to turn his pain into a voice. And maybe that's where change begins, not in silence, but in truth-telling. Because silence allows injustice to grow. So the question is, how many more people will have to carry these invisible scars before we say enough? How many more nights like his before the world truly decides to change? Racism is not someone else's problem. It's our problem, and the only way forward is together. If you've ever faced a moment that changed how you see someone you love, share your story in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful tales that touch the heart. Thank you for being here.